We have an update on the Target Pride Month saga. The retail giant is reportedly removing certain items from its stores and making other changes to its LGBTQ merchandise nationwide ahead of Pride Month. This is after intense backlash from some customers, including apparently alleged confrontations, maybe some of them violent, with workers. Here's right-winger Ethan Schmidt, who's made videos with Kari Lake, Wendy Rogers, and Paul Gosar, all Arizona far-right figures, warning Target and LGBT supporters.
We're giving you a heads up that, we're going to be coming after you hard. I've already exposed you guys pretty good, but, this is going to be next level stuff, so.
Bryce wins, LGBT loses.
Yeah. I also like to hunt LGBT supporters on my free time. That's one of my favorite pastimes, We're also, we're going to be going on hunting expeditions pretty soon. Hunting the LGBT supporters across Arizona and Phoenix. So, keep an eye out for that because, you're not safe. If you support the LGBT agenda, you're not safe.
I mean, that seems like very trollish, Nick Fuentes, edgelordy threat.
Wow, it's funny. I saw that as a threat. I saw that as an explicit threat. I don't think it's trollish. I think saying that you are going to hunt down people that they should not feel safe is an explicit threat of violence. We described it as a warning in the read. That seems like a lot more than a warning, like a warning that I'm going to physically harm you. Is a pretty significant charge, especially from someone who so many prominent mainstream conservative politicians have chosen to associate themselves with.
I think he's all talk. But.
Okay. So do you think that Kari Lake or any of the others that have chosen to associate closely with the people in the car who are saying they're going to hunt down LGBT supporters and that they should not be safe are going to distance themselves from him or say that they don't support the threat to members of the LGBT community and the people that like them?
Do I think they're going to?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
That's interesting because that does seem like to me a much bigger story than whether or not Target is walking back some of its merchandise. I think that Target is obviously perfectly entitled to make those kinds of decisions. If they think they're losing money by having Pride-themed merchandise, then they can take it off their shelves. And of course, the majority of Americans who support gay people and gay rights are going to have feelings about whether or not they want to then support Target for seeming to bend the knee on this particular issue. Gavin Newsom called out Target for, quote, selling out the LGBT community after pulling some of the trans-themed merchandise. And I don't see this culture wars going anywhere, except for that this was one of the issues that I think was largely settled around gay rights, and it does feel as though we're having retrenchment of even that. We're in the videos that we weren't able to play, the person who was destroying merchandise, vandalizing Target, was not vandalizing some trans-specific item of clothing. He was vandalizing a rainbow.
Yeah, it seems like blowback on the trans issue is now, I mean, the Q taking down, the T rather, taking down the LGB part of it, some backsliding in support for equal treatment of gay people.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of, the right-wing criticism of trans people and sort of increasingly just like lumping in queer pride in general.
It's happening, and many LGBT people, activists, etc., have warned that the anti-trans stuff was just a stalking horse. It's a way to get the camel's nose under the tent to have the retrenchment on culture wars that have already kind of been won and settled 10, 20 years ago. It does feel like this is causing people to feel really entitled to, again, go after
Well, let's go back to that video for a minute. What do you think
LGBT.
Do you think the police should contact that individual?
The person who made explicit threats? I think there should be we talk all the time about how there are these red flags that the law enforcement doesn't follow up on. I'd be curious to know if those people have guns, if those people have guns legally, and if they're permitted appropriately. And I don't know. I don't know what the gun laws are in the relevant states that are affected, but I definitely think that if something were to happen and the police had not intervened in some kind of way, we'd be saying, oh, well, they knew they were on the radar and they didn't do anything about it. So I'm not an intelligence person or a law enforcement person, and I definitely don't know what the laws are in terms of them being able to act on this. If this legally rises to the level of threat that allows people to intervene, that's for the law to decide. But
what
in terms of a
platform
political,
was that on? Was that a TikTok video? I don't know. Well, I know the tweet is Twitter, but
the video, the format
video
looks like it's going to be TikTok just because it's up and down like that. It could also
I don't know.
be
I wonder if it
Snapchat.
violates their policies on.
That's interesting as well.
I think repeatedly saying you're going to hunt specific people would violate a policy on calls to violence.
But even beyond the kind of, I brought it up not from a legal perspective, but from a political perspective. It is really interesting that so many people would openly associate with this kind of rhetoric and not feel like they're not going to get blowback from the overwhelming majority of people who, even if they don't like
well,
gay
again,
people.
Is this so many people, or is this a couple far-right Nick Fuentes type?
That even if they don't hate gay people, even if they do hate gay people hypothetically, they certainly don't advocate for them to be murdered in the streets or to be threatened in any way. So, you know, that is what's so, I think, jarring to people, that the Overton window about what is acceptable kind of publicly, I don't mean in terms of the speech rights, but what's publicly acceptable to associate yourself with or to say seems to be broadened because of the attack on trans people in particular.
Yeah. Look, would I prefer if the conservative movement would disassociate itself entirely from people who say crazy, provocative, edgelordy, nutcase stuff on a variety of subjects, including this? I mean, yes, absolutely. I don't think these people are doing the conservative movement any favors. They seem, again, we're just like diagnosing everybody at a distance. It seems you seem unhinged and unwell if you're doing this kind of thing.
Another interesting aspect is that one of the items of clothing that Target's selling that people are objecting a lot to is this underwear that is like pro-tuck underwear that allows people who have not gotten gender reassignment surgery but who want to wear more tightly fitting, more typically feminine style bottoms have room to do so. That's interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One, you know, there's been men's Speedos and like men's cut underwear, you know, swimming underwear for a long time that is presumably roomy enough for that to be done.
We're really having a discussion here.
Yeah, but also, I mean, there's simultaneously two conflicting arguments going on here. One, that children should not have gender reassignment surgery. Also, that children who identify as trans and don't want gender reassignment surgery should not be able to avail them of swimsuits, which would allow them to dress the way that they want to at the beach without having gender reassignment surgery, right? So there's an interesting kind of tension there. On top of this argument that seems to be that people who want to dress the way they want to dress and have that kind of freedom of expression should be precluded from doing so because they're going to protest any store that sells garments that are enabling them to express themselves they want to. It does seem a little like a free marketing conflict of interest sort of a thing. If Target doesn't sell them, are they going to also boycott smaller retailers? Does it have to be a retailer that singularly manufactures that one item to resist the kind of boycott?
I do have an answer. I was listening to a Matt Walsh video yesterday where he was elaborating on his strategy for these boycotts, and he says explicitly, like, we have to pick a target and punish, literally target in this case. Like he said that he doesn't drink Bud Light, so he's not capable of boycotting them anyway. Let's pick something, this is what he was saying to his followers, his viewers, and obviously we can't boycott everything that is too woke, so let's pick something and inflict punishment on that. How many times do I have to mute my computer here? And punish that company for being woke or pushing an agenda they don't agree with, which obviously it's their right to do. I can't imagine getting worked up about what other people, how they're dressing their kids. It's like none of my business. I couldn't care less about, like, your kids are your responsibility, and if you don't want them dressed like that, that's absolutely fine. Also, if you don't want to go to Target anymore, that's absolutely fine.
Knock yourself out.
And
I think
if you
a lot
don't
of
want to buy
Target
Bud Light
employees,
anymore, that's fine.
A lot of these Target employees, based on these videos, would probably love it if these people stopped going to Target because they have been.
Well, and if you punch a Target employee, you're going to jail.
Yeah, there's some videos of people getting harassed and kind of chased and followed around the store and things like that, and that's going to have spillover effects too. If you're a conservative conservative who wants to grow the movement and have, larger numbers of blacks and Latinos and other groups that haven't historically voted Republican joining the fold, chasing around the blacks, Latinos, and gays that work at Target. And haranguing them and making their customer service experience so terrible probably isn't endearing them to the movement. So this is one of those like normie, fringe tensions, something that's very internet-y that's spilling into the real world that I think might not be received the same way as it is on Twitter. Yeah,
I saw a funny meme the other day or something that was like going over from the standpoint of like a conservative talking to a normie and saying like the first thing they say is, it's not fair in sports teams to have biological males competing with women. And like the normie's like, yeah, I agree with that. And says like a couple reasonable things. And then the final thing is, and the woke mind virus is destroying our civilization. And the normie's like backing away.
Yeah.
There's a way that these things get talked about for a very online audience that is not helpful in tone or in substance.
Have you considered children's private parts in their swimming suits today? Is not a good opening pitch.
Yeah.
All right, more Rising for you right after this.